Welcome back to the Devy YouTube channel. Every week we talk about one freshman that we need to highlight, and today's college football freshman is on Rueben Owens, running back for Texas A&M. Hopefully for Texas A&M, for Aggie fans out there, continuing after we see a new coaching change there. Mike Elko getting hired over from Duke. We're going to talk about that, what that looks like for Ruben. But we're going to be diving into his advanced stats, kind of going over his PFF grades. What does that look like? What is he projecting to be later, right? So what is his ranking as we move to next season, as we did with CJ Baxter, and just kind of talk about what his outlook can be and what we've seen from him. He's come on a little bit here down the stretch of the season. So what is that? What can we expect from him moving forward? So hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll dive into Rueben Owens. All right, let's get into Ruben. Let's kind of talk about him overall and what we expect from him. Now, when you're looking at his profile on three, when we always like to do this, kind of show you where he was ranked at other sites. Overall, he was pretty much running back 2. ESPN had him the lowest, Rivals had him the highest, but essentially on 3 and 247 Sports are pretty much the two that I really kind of lean towards. Those two guys, had him as running back 2, right behind Baxter, who we talked about earlier, and for good reason, right? He had 2 back-to-back seasons of over 2,000 yards rushing. His junior year, I think he won Max Player of the Year for 46 touchdowns. Like, he was just a touchdown scoring machine out there, and he was crushing it. Now, the interesting thing about Owens is he was actually going to Louisville, right? And then Louisville fired their coach, and it kind of changed things. And Louisville had a hell of a season, right? Going to go play in the ACC title game. So, I mean, that's something to know. Like, when you're thinking of where's Ruben Mike gonna go, right? Where is he gonna go? And I think that's where Texas A&M fans could be concerned, because he came in and many expected A&M to be much better than they are. Now they lost their coach. Now what does that look like? And I think that's the interesting part about where he could go. That's also why I want to throw up here, like, where he was kind of leaning towards. Louisville was the number 1, but I mean, Texas on the TCU, like, there's other schools that are going to be opening up that checkbook for Rueben Owens, and what is that going to look like? Now, this year, what we can talk about, he came in at 200 pounds, which you'd like to see. Definitely was a lot stronger down the stretch of the season. By the numbers, when you're looking at just from a PFF standpoint, 236 yards after contact, which is really good. I think that's the area of his game that is always going to be good. 21 missed tackles forced. That you saw that down the stretch, a little bit better there. 9 explosive runs, and then 64.6 elusive rating. So I think the highlights of what, when I broke down the 26 class and I did it over the off season before the season started, I actually got DM'd by Ruben's dad. And Ruben's dad was a little mad at me because he was talking about, because my area of concern was his explosive runs and his elusiveness, right? Like I said, hey, I like him, but I don't know if he has that top end. I don't know necessarily if I see that. And I think that's showing up a little bit right now. It doesn't mean he can't get better. So this isn't a knock on him. Like, he can develop, and that's something that you hope that he does. And I think he has. He had a 28-yard rush for a high against, I think it was Abilene Christian, not LSU. Didn't have a great game against LSU. His best game of the year was Abilene Christian, where he had 18 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Like, we have seen those things. Like, he has had like little moments where he's had those elusiveness, but he needs to have quicker feet. I think one thing that shows up in Rueben Owens' game a lot is that he's going to have to get a little bit quicker and a little bit faster. Now, he was definitely dealing with a lot of issues. Texas A&M was going through, obviously, coaching change. The offensive line wasn't the greatest. Quarterback play was definitely not the greatest. So, like, what he was able to do this year so far, 359 yards and 3 touchdowns, is, he did it. What does that look like moving forward? I think is the biggest question. Can he do that? Now, when we kind of go over where he's running, rushes by directions is a fun little PFF stats that they kind of give you, show you where he's being successful at, right? So really, it's pretty much across the board for him. Like, there is no area that kind of stands out, and that's consistency. I will say, like, off the left inside, when we're talking about where he goes, 77 yards. He's had a few big runs there, though. That's going to sway that a little bit. Where he had those 3 over 10-yard runs there. Yards after contact is where it comes from. So again, not a huge sample size there for Ruben, but this does, generally speaking, give you an idea of kind of where he's been going at, which is kind of cool. Like, I think this is a fun little area of, like, hey, where's that offensive line play? How good is that offensive line play, and so forth. Now, when we're talking about, like, his outlook, what do we expect from him? So I think the biggest thing is if he stays, let's just, project that he's staying there. Who's Elko going to bring in? Now he brought in the Memphis coordinator when he went to Duke. Who, he's got an open checkbook. A&M's going to give him whatever you want. So that's something to watch. Like, all right, who's his offensive coordinator going to be? Can he keep Rueben there? So if Rueben stays, when you're looking overall, I mean, Amari Daniels is there, Le'Veon Moss is there. Rueben could really be the running back one on a team. Like when you saw Duke's rushing attack, like he could elevate this rushing attack. It might not be a bad thing to stay there and kind of, be the guy in Elko's offense, whoever he brings in. But that's something that you have to watch as you're going through it. So from a depth chart perspective, I think he's running back one on Texas A&M. Now, will he stay? I think that's the big one. Where are some other teams to go through? I know some Louisville players have kind of tweeted out and done a little bit of like eye emojis and stuff. And there's been some rumors on the message boards out there that he might go back to Louisville as he was committed there before with their great year. Maybe he does that. Maybe he decides, hey, I'm going to go kind of back on that side and go there and play in that offense that could open things up from a passing perspective, but then also from a rushing perspective. You won't have 8-man box, those type of things. So that's something to also think about. As far as his ranking goes, overall here at the channel, we rank them. I just updated my Devy ranks, and I kind of updated we have a Devy Dynasty rank. So what we do here, it's a little different than I guess other people do. We don't just have flat Devy rankings because, quite frankly, that's not what the Devy format is about. The Devy format is about like understanding player values based on dynasty assets, right? So we have our combined rankings. So what we do is we have combined rankings that ranks the Devy and dynasty side and kind of talks about him. So when you're looking at my running back rankings for him, I still have him in, when you're looking at where is he at, he's still in my top 10, top 15. So he's still in there. I think for me personally, you just want to see where he goes. Is he going to land in an offense that's going to highlight him? And then moving forward, what does that look like? And I think that's something to note for Rueben Owens. But overall, he's had a pretty good year. Probably not the year that he expected to have. I think that he expected to have a little bit more production than he did. But it was kind of a tumultuous year. If he finds himself here in Elko's offense and kind of be the highlight, he can kind of sit there and be the guy. That's something to know. I think A&M could lean on him. And it would be interesting if they brought the gang back, right? So you're thinking of Evan Stewart and Wiegman and these guys who I think could really be a good, solid group if they're all healthy. But the time will tell to see if they do that. But Rueben Owens, spotlight him. He's someone to know, especially if he hits the transfer portal.